everyone, and welcome to Time and Money Mastery. We are your co-hosts. I'm Indiana.
And I'm Sam. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on any of our episodes. Now, let's get started. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Time and Money Mastery. You're here with your co-host Sam, and today I'm joined with the man behind the camera at The Wicked Hunt. His name is Stanley, and I'm so excited for all of you to meet him and hear a little bit about his story. So Stanley, thank you so much for making the time to be on the podcast today.
Hey Sam, thanks for having me here. I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, Stanley, let's start off by first letting our audience know a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Stanley, as Sam say. I'm a travel photographer who left my career as a mechanical engineer to pursue my love for travel and my passion for photography. So ever since I left my career, my mission had always been to capture the unseen perspectives of the world, because I feel like there's so many places that many people don't get to experience, and I wanted to go to all of those places, especially those places that are less visited and less seen. And with that, my dream had always been to help others to pursue their passion, whatever it may be, and whether or not they want to pursue it full-time, part-time, or even just a hobby. But I think our life is too short not to not to pursue our passion. I think we often get stuck in this loop of routine in our comfort zone, and I'd love for people to kind of step outside of that and pursue their passion, whatever it may be. So I, as a living, my main source of income is helping other photographers to pursue their passion and capture their dream shot. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's who I am.
That's really cool. And I love how you went from, being a mechanical engineer to pursuing your passion and taking photographs, because I've been looking at your photography and it's absolutely blowing my mind. That's actually, for our listeners out there, that's how this started. I saw Stanley's photos and read some of his story, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to get him on the podcast, because it's such, I feel like, especially in this day and age of social media, so many people are really tapping into those creative pursuits and getting into these opportunities that they might not have been able to before, because they're able to get inspired by people doing so many incredible things all over the world. So Stanley, tell me a little bit about how you started off in photography. Was this just something you've always loved to do? Was there someone who inspired you to go into it, or anything like that?
Yeah, it's really interesting that you asked that question, because my dad was a photographer, and my one of my very close uncle was a photographer as well, and I try to avoid it like a plague. I felt like photography was a hobby that is a waste of money, with all the gears and all that stuff. And at that time, my focus was to have fancy car and nice house, and that was kind of the mindset. So the big turning point was when I went for a 5-week trip in Europe, and that was a massive turning point. At that time, I have like a pocket camera that is have a good enough quality, but I just don't use it to the extent. And mainly because I didn't know what to do with it. So I had like amazing 5 weeks of I can't even remember how many countries we visited, probably like 7 or 10. We literally drive across from London all the way down to South France, and then back up to Belgium, Amsterdam, Germany, you name it. But one of the biggest thing that really was a big disappointment was when I'm back from those trips, and I was so excited to share this journey, share the experience. But the photo that I took was just nowhere close to doing its justice to to representing the experiences that I have. So that was a point where I was like, like, oh man, like, it was such an amazing trip, and yet like the photos, like it's nowhere like how I remember it. So that was the big motivation. The big motivation was to be able to document my travel, document my life, document the experiences that I I experienced throughout my life in a way that can do those moments its justice. And if you ask why the Wicked Hunt, that's kind of why where the name came from as well, because it's not. I don't let photography drive where I go, but it's the other way around. I let photography document and follow where I'm going. So, for example, I used to be this person where, I would want to go to Eiffel Tower, take a bunch of photos of the Eiffel Tower and go home, right? And if the condition or the perspective didn't work out like I had imagined, I would just leave my camera on the back and go back home. But now it's different because I have a different mission. It was more about the journey and about documenting what I experienced throughout those journey, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's the cool thing about photography. Actually, you can always find beauty in amongst all the chaos, amongst the craziness, amongst the mess. And I think that's just like a half full kind of way looking at life, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and Stanley, I'm so obsessed with what you said about how the Wicked Hunt is all about, documenting where you go rather than going out of your way to, find a good place to take a photo kind of thing. I think it's so different because when you said that, I just think about what it's like now, and I'm always like, oh, we should go to this place because I saw someone take a photo there and I want to take a photo there. And then like that's kind of the purpose of me going there. I just know when we were traveling, there were so many times where that was what I wanted to do. But then when we were there and we were exploring, some of my favorite photos from my overseas trips were taken when we were just like wandering around, being touristy, enjoying the space around us, and then like exploring new environments. And I would just happen to take photos there, and those tended to be like my favorite ones. So I love that that's all about, that's what the Wicked Hunt is all about. And for our listeners, make sure you do check out his Instagram and his content. We'll drop all of the links in the show notes below because they're absolutely amazing. Stanley, I wanted to bring it back a little bit to, you mentioned when you first started off that photography felt like just a really expensive hobby, with all of the gear and all the stuff you kind of have to invest in, but not just like money wise, but time wise. Did you find it difficult to take the leap and invest in yourself and in your passion?
Well, let me just track back a little bit, Sam, with the whole notion of Wicked Hunt. I don't want to sound pretentious and say that I don't visit those places. I still do, and I still take like those popular spots. But I think the important thing is not to approach it with an open mind when you get there, and don't stop with the popular shot, because that's what I always tell my students and my mentees, like, take the safe shot, take the popular spot, but then go explore, go see, past this obvious thing. So I just want to share that before I can answer your question.
No, that's a good point, definitely.
But to answer your question with the money and time, and I think this is, I absolutely love this question because with the social media, it's so easy to get caught up on having photography as a way to capture, a photo that people like. Whereas I think it's really important, if you want to be sustainable and enjoy photography, to do it for yourself before anyone else. I think like anything in life, I suppose, if you have a hobby, if it's something that you're interested in, if you really love it, you will put the effort in it, right? You will put the money in it. I know I've been living here in the Canadian Rockies. I know there's a lot of people who are so passionate about, snowboarding and the outdoors, that they would save their, food money for food so that they can buy the next, best gear for it. So I think, when you love it, you love it, and money doesn't really matter. But one thing that I would like to address is that, a lot of the times we do photography because we enjoy it, right? I mean, I'm sure you take photo too, and when you capture that photo, that's like, oh, this looks really cool. You get excited, right?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, with social media, a lot of that kind of shifted, and kind of shift, instead of what makes you happy, it's more about what other people like, what other people will hit, the like double tap and give you the like. And although that is a great kind of way, who doesn't want to be like, right? But at the end of the day, I think if you want to be sustainable and if you want to enjoy photography for the longer term, you really need to find, you really need to understand how photography itself makes you happy before looking for this, approval from social media and so forth. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, most definitely. And I think that that's so cool because, I mean, like the point you made earlier, when you really love it, you do what it takes, and money isn't the issue. But I think what's really cool is you're right. Like when you love something, as much as like if your passion is to help other people, you still want to have that element of what do you get out of it? And I think that's something that a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, especially the really heart-centered ones, tend to forget a little bit. I know some of my coaching clients like, oh, I want to help the world in like XYZ way. But then, when they start getting disconnected to what joy it brings them, then it starts to feel like just any other job. And I think that's such an important point you bring up because, we all get into our passions for a reason, when we want to turn our passion into the way we can make some income so we can spend more time on our passion. There's a reason why we love it so much, right? And I think that that's such a good point you bring up. And it's really
Yeah.
reminded me as well, why I love coaching, why I love doing what I do, because I love not just being able to help people, but how that makes me feel as well. So thank you for that.
No, absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And like you say, like coaching is a good example where you kind of, most people got into coaching not because they want to make money, but they want to be able to support a living in a way that makes them fulfilled, right?
Yeah.
But kind of, as it progressed to, it's so easy to get caught up with the monetary side of things. And I know I've been there before where, like the passion was like, I asked myself, it's like, whoa, hold on, like, I'm back to where I was when I was doing 9 to 5. It was like, chasing this dollar instead of, what are the ways to support my living, but in a way that is sustainable and fulfilling to myself. So it's really easy to get caught up on that, and I think it's really important to always remember your why. So yeah, spot on.
Yeah, incredible. Well, let's bring it back a little bit because you mentioned before something that really stuck with me is, being able that you love inspiring people to pursue their passions, whether it's in a part-time, full-time, or hobby capacity. So tell me a little bit about the transition you made from mechanical engineer to now being full-time in the Wicked Hunt, full-time in helping aspiring photographers. Like, what was that journey like?
It was messy. I mean, there was a time where life wasn't exciting. It was a time where life was all about the weekend, where I couldn't wait until Friday comes. Friday comes, as soon as that clock hits 3:30, I would be the first one out of the gate, and be heading to party and stuff. So trying to numb those feelings. But ever since I found photography, I think I have found a different purpose. And I think that's important in life, is that it doesn't matter what you decide to do for a living, right? Whether you want to pursue your hobby full time or you want to do something else to support your hobby. I think it's important to have something that really makes you excited about life, that makes you wake up in the morning, whatever it may be. And I was that person. I think I used to have Steve Jobs quote on my bathroom mirror written out. If today were the last day of my life, would I do what I'm about to do today? And I literally used to wake up, go to the bathroom, brush my teeth, and I would read that, and then I would answer, is that a yes or is that a no? So that's yeah, like it's really important that you do that. So when the answer was no for the longest time, then I know that I need to make a change, because I only have one life. Life is short. You never know when it's gonna end, regardless your age. And if you like, there is no purpose in life. Like, there is no final destination. If you wait until final destination, the final destination is death, like literally. So if
Literally,
you don't,
yeah.
exactly. So if you don't enjoy the journey, like regardless what it is, there is no final destination. Like, sure, like you can wait until retirement, but would it be too late, right? So I think that was a really big wake up call for me. And yeah, I decided that if I were to stay as an engineer, I wouldn't be able to see all these places that I want to see, and I wouldn't be able to experience all these experiences that I want to be able to experience. So I could either stay as an engineer and have that comfortable lifestyle and financial security, or try this new venture, start over as a nomads, as travel photographer, and try to make that work. And in the process, I will be able to experience more of the world, see more of the world. And for me, the risk was just worth it. Like, that's it. Yeah, like I'd rather look back and say it's like, oh, okay, I tried and I failed, rather than, oh, what could have been, right?
Yes.
If I try it. So that's I think that's the big process in my head, especially, like that's the most important anyway, because everything else kind of follow whatever you believe and you think. So if you manifested it, then it'll come true eventually.
That is such a good point, that things happen in alignment with what you believe. I think that that's such a powerful perspective to have, because like, as you know, like as a coach, having powerful beliefs and, working on our limiting ones is the absolute key, the needed foundation to make anything happen. And so, Stanley, from the point where you came back from your Europe trip and you were like, oh, these photos don't do the experiences justice, to then starting the Wicked Hunt and doing your photography full time, how long did it take you to sort of take the leap once you had almost made that decision to be like, this is what I want to do now?
That was, I don't even remember. I know it's probably like a way before that. I already have that. I've already planted a seed in my head. I was listening to Pat Flynn was the very first person that I was listening to, and he's an amazing affiliate marketer, podcaster, as well as this passive income person. And I was like listening to him because my drive to where I work used to be like so long, like an hour drive one way.
Wow.
So I would listen to them. It's like, wow, like I didn't know there was like this option. So I had this mind in my head. It's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna try this, I'm gonna try that. And actually, for the Euro trip, I was planning to write a blog for my trip, but I'm not a big writer, you see, so it never really came true. Like, I had the website ready, like I grew the Instagram. Like, if you look at my other Instagram, which is Last to Fly, I grew it to 20,000 plus, and I just never really do anything with it, because that was supposed to be the blog, like travel blogging side of it. But so yeah, it took me a while until I was like ready, and until I was like, okay, I'm gonna make this happen, and start making, taking that small step, bits by bits, until it happened. So the whole process, I think at least a good 5 years until I pulled the plug. And once I know what I want to do, I think it was like a good 2 years or something like that. So I also read this book by Tim Ferriss, The 4-Hour Work Week.
Oh, great book.
Exactly. It's amazing. And I love how he said, try it out, and see if you like it. And that's exactly what I did in that 2 years. I took like a longer and longer and longer holiday, and treat it as if I'm doing travel photography, and see if I like it. So after 2 or 3 tries, I was convinced. I was like, I want to do this.
Yeah, that is so cool. Well, first point that I wanted to bring up again is the fact that it did take you, a little bit of time, a couple of years even to get from yes, this is what I want to do to then being where you are today. I think that that's such an important point to bring up, especially for our listeners, because I think for me being on Instagram and seeing the success stories of everyone, there are a few people who can make their dreams happen in a month or 6 months or a year. And because everything is so instantaneous. I was actually talking about this with another one of our podcast guests before, how everything is so instantaneous these days that when our success doesn't feel instantaneous, it can kind of feel like we're not cut out for it or it's not meant to be. And what I really love is that when you realize, yes, this is what I want to do, you took those little steps to kind of, test the waters a little bit. You didn't just, burn all the boats and say, well, let's just see if this works. You kind of like dipped your toes in a little bit first. And then when you had more information, you were able to take bigger and more massive action. So that's really cool. I love that you're inspired by the 4-Hour Workweek. I love that book too. When I first read it, I thought it was like, this is going to teach me how to only work for 4 hours. And I don't know how I feel about that. But I love the principle behind, designing life based on the lifestyle you want to live. And that book is just incredible. And if anyone's listening and like you're looking for a book to read that. So Stanley, the next thing I wanted to ask is a little bit more topical. Did you find that pursuing your passion and doing your photography was hard given, the lockdown and the world shutting down because of COVID?
Yeah, I think well, it really depends. It's opportunities everywhere. Doors is opening and closing everywhere, and I think let me backtrack a little bit, right? When I first started, the reason why it took me so long was that I'm this type of person that I like to try everything, and then once I know what I like, I stick with that. So actually, the very first few years that I started with, when I quit the job, I was like trying everything. Like I was trying like portrait, I was trying real estate, I was trying to be influencer, to be a promoting brand, like you name it. And I come to a conclusion that this is what I want to do in the end, which is, being able to coach. That's the thing that makes me happy the most. I think that's where it becomes important when you do want to pursue your passion, especially in this era. There is so many ways to support your life through your passion. And it's really, really important to find the way that really fit with with what you enjoy, with how it makes you happy. Because I could easily, make this happen a lot faster if I were to do like wedding photography or portrait photography, which I have done in the past. I haven't done wedding, but portrait photography. It would be a lot easier for me to do that. But it would come back to when I do 9 to 5, it's no longer the things that really makes me excited. So then, that's where you need to be careful when you pursue your passion, is that you don't go back to those things, because otherwise you just in the wrong loop all over again. So to answer your question, is with the COVID, is it harder to earn a living? Yes and no, because people would want to be in the computer more, so online courses are better. But if you want to do, if your main income is on trips and travel, then yeah, you will be struggling. But I know that there are a lot of people that shift from that sort of business model into more like the online model, and push the online side of thing a little bit more, and they can compensate the stuff that is more one-on-one with the things that are more online. So I think it's really important to be able to adapt and adjust in the climate. So for me myself, I literally started the coaching thing in 2020. So when this happened, it felt like it was a calling. It felt like the world was telling me, all right, Stanley, you got to stop having fun and start, making this sustainable. And that's what I did in 2020. That's when I dive into the coaching and creating courses and membership and so forth.
That is so awesome. You know what's so funny is that I officially kicked off my coaching in 2020 as well. So I think the world was giving me that same message of, okay, Sam, if this is really what you want to do, time to take it seriously. So I love that. I'm obsessed with that. And I'm so glad that, that this perspective is out there, that what's happening around in the world doesn't have to stop you from pursuing your dreams. If anything, it's a calling to find better ways or different ways to be able to realize that dream. So that's so cool. Okay. So, Stanley, this podcast is time and money mastery. And so I'd love to know a little bit about how you spend your average week and how that might differ from what you thought your life would be like before you even started, getting into photography this way.
Well, I think the big difference here is that I could decide what I want to focus on. Well, in the past, I locked in, 9 to 5 for 5 days, right?
Yes.
So I could tell you that the first 2 years, I didn't take it seriously. I was just literally having too much fun traveling and going on adventures, right? And 2020 was the time where I say no to a lot of those adventures and say no. It's time for me to sacrifice my time to create this. The way of living that I wanted. So I think that's the great thing about it, is that you are your own boss and your effort is reflected on the result that you're gonna get. Right.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's yeah, when it comes to that, that's definitely one of the best thing about it. It's like it's as easy, like if you're gonna put more hours into it, you're gonna get more out of it. If you're gonna put less into it, then you're gonna get less out of it. And I think that's awesome to be able to have that relationship between time, effort, and money, that you put out versus that you get back in.
Yes, literally. I think that specifically that you mentioned, the relationship between time, effort, and money, the way that that's so skewed in a 9 to 5 was kind of what made it feel so crippling for me. Was that I remember I would do something, I'd be like, I'd finish it in an hour or two, but with, the 6 hours left to go of the day, I just had to keep doing more, and it wouldn't have made a difference whether I did it or not, like in terms of my paycheck. Do you know what I mean? And while we don't just do things for the money, it's so cool now to be in a place where the money and the results and the experiences that I get to experience, which I'm sure you can relate to, is reflected, it all reflects, I should say, the effort that I'm willing to put in. And so I know that if I want more, then it's completely in my control, versus someone in a 9 to 5 who might say something like, oh, they only promote people, once a year, and they can only promote one person. And so there are so many more obstacles I found, like, to leveling up in a traditional 9 to 5. So that's a really good point you make. And so what do you feel like is the number one lesson you've learned about yourself taking this journey and taking the path that might not have been the one you initially thought you'd be on?
So sorry, repeat. Could you please repeat that
Yeah, of
question?
course. What is the number one lesson you've learned about yourself now that you're on this journey that you didn't think that you would have been on back in the day?
Um, I think the biggest one is which I probably oversay this, but there's probably two things that makes the one thing, right? And
Mm,
it also come back belief in yourself and belief in the process.
mm.
Everything comes down to those two things. If you want to make it happen, you have to believe in yourself, and you just have to follow through. Like, it doesn't matter how tough it is, how much work it is, how challenging it is. But if it is the one thing that you want to be good at, if it's the one thing that you want to get there, then just stick it through, because it will get there. I mean, of course, there's a whole bunch of other things that kind of goes into it, right? First of all, you want to learn, and you don't want to repeat a mistake. All this stuff also come into play. But being patient is really important. And like, with those two, it kind of like come back to what you say earlier with this overnight success that people think happens, is such a wrong, such a dangerous mindset, I think, because most people, even though it looks like it's an overnight, most of the time they have put the works in it, right? But suddenly that one thing that they have been, they have tried 10,000 times, and that 10,001 times literally, picks up and make it look like the overnight success. But what they didn't see is the 10,000 other iteration that they did behind that. So I think believing in yourself and just trusting your process until you get that, 10,001 thing that will give you the momentum, that will give you the tipping point of what you want to do, is really important. Just be patient and be at it, be consistent to get to where you want to be.
Yes, I love that. And that is such a good point that you make as well, because I know that for me, I would always tell myself, oh, I know that what I'm seeing online isn't the first attempt or isn't their first try at anything. I'm sure that they had, their stumbles and their falls before they could get to this place. But I think it was only until I lived it where I told myself, you know what, I've got to keep going through my quote unquote failures or my struggles to then landing my like first paid client. That's when I really realized how much work it could take, but how worth it all of that work was. In the moment, it was always so, oh, I don't know if I'm cut out for this, or I don't know if I'm in over my head, or am I just going to embarrass myself because I told everyone that this is what I was doing now. But then landing the first paid client and then the momentum that built from there just proved that everything that I was going through before that was so totally worth it. So that's such a good point, to believe in yourself and believe and trust in the process. It's such good advice. Okay, Stanley, I've got one more question for you before we wrap it up. What is one thing that you wish you could tell your past self about life and where you would be now?
um, it's funny because I kept telling myself this, like, oh, if I were, to live this all over again, life would be different. First of all, I would not go to college. That's the one thing. I would literally, straight off of high school, start traveling. And this is why I'm an advocate for traveling, because travel it's not only about fun, like, sure, if you only care about the party, then that's all you get. But what I find myself in traveling, like being able to open, for example, like, my perspectives of the challenges and the problem we have in this world in terms of the environment. I used to think, like, oh yeah, sure, it is a problem, but it's not my problem. And the more I travel, the more my eyes open, is, that we all need to do our part. Because if we don't, like, one person is not enough, like 10,000 person is not enough. We all need to contribute to that. So, those kind of things really change the way I see the world, right? The next thing as well, like, if I weren't traveling, if I don't travel, I don't think I'll ever be where I am right now, where I what do you call it? I put experience above money, right? The value of experience above money. Because, back then my mindset was all about, the fancy things. And I realized that the fancy things is not a sustainable happiness. The new experience is always the thing that fires you up. So that's how my life changed. That's how my photography is all about experiences, right? And so if I were to go back, and I know that there's a lot of I've met, because I travel, I met a lot of people in their early 20s, and they says like, oh, but I don't know what I want to do in life. I don't know, my purpose. You don't need to know your purpose. You just have to explore and try different things. And, like, people think that trying different things is like, you just don't take life seriously. But once you find that one thing that you really, really love, you will be in it 110%. And that's what's beautiful about life. That's what makes you fired up about life. Instead of putting 50% on this thing that, I'm doing a quote thing here, but a quote, open quote, the things that you might like, So, like, that's the one thing that I would I would tell myself is to explore, try different things, experience different things, believe in yourself, and trust in the process.
Oh, incredible. I think that that's so important as well that you mentioned that, because I feel more so than ever that even though we've got social media to connect us across the world, so many people are living in little bubbles, you know what I mean? And not being able to expand and go out, not just like to other countries even, but just to outside of their own perspective. So I think that that's such good advice, to go out and travel and explore the world. And also the point about not needing purpose, you know, to just take experiences and gain what I love to call life capital, you know, like gain all of the lessons and the experiences that you can get from trying different things. Because when I did that, what's so funny is that when I adopted that attitude of let me just try a few things and figure out what it is that I want to do in the process of experiencing life, I all of the experiences that felt like I was just, you know, not taking life seriously all contributed to the thing that I'm doing now. I can literally draw parallels between, oh, if I didn't try this thing, then there's no way I would have ended up here. So I think that that's an excellent point. Thank you so much, Stanley. Now, before we let you go, where can our audience find you,
Sorry, Cam.
connect? Oh,
Before you go, can I just add one thing?
yeah, of
Small
course,
thing
of
to that.
course.
I think people when hear that message from me, especially someone who traveled the world, think that they have to travel the world.
Mm,
In fact, you don't need to do that. All you got to do is visit different part of your town, like different part of your neighborhood. Take a
mm,
different route to work. Wake up earlier and stop by this beach or park or whatever it is on the way to your work, and that's all you need. Like you just have to push outside of your comfort zone bits by bit so that you can experience and you can experience the full meaning of life, instead of this thing that it's like, okay, I need to wake up exactly 43 minutes before I go to work, and it'll take 3 minutes to go to shower, 2 minutes, all this thing. And I used to be that person. Literally, I would not wake up a minute more
mm.
because I know exactly how long it'll take me to do each task and how long exactly to get me to work. But yeah, just taking that extra a different route to work can really make a whole lot of difference with your perspective and the way you live life. So yeah, just want to add that there.
Yeah. No, that is such a good point, because I think that so many of us, oh my gosh, this conversation going forever. I love talking to you. So like so many people like think that in order to make their dreams happen, they have to take these ginormous steps or these ginormous leaps, and that stops them from
Yeah.
actually going out and taking action and moving the needle, even just like the tiniest bit, right? But that's such a good point that you make. You know, if you want to be in the example of a travel photographer, if you can't afford to, or if the world isn't letting you travel overseas, you know, just waking up a little bit earlier and taking a different route to work sounds so simple, but it can change your entire perspective. So that is an excellent point. Stanley, where can our audience find you, connect with you, and any aspiring photographers out there who might want to be coached with you, how can they find you and make that happen?
Well, the best way to find me is I've got a website called thewickedhunt.com.
Mm,
You could also find me on Instagram and Facebook at The Wicked Hunt. So if you just type in The Wicked Hunt and my name to it, and it should just pop up.
perfect.
But I think for most people who have this that who have this struggle with the process and believing in themselves. I have a podcast as well where I talk about that, and I literally chat with all the world class photographers and talk about their journey. It was something that really helped me this year, especially like you say, with the pandemic and all the
Mm,
negativity that's
mhm.
happening around the world,
Yeah.
and to be able to see that, oh gosh, okay, like these guys put so much effort to get there, so that like you don't just quit when thing doesn't go your way, because that's how they get there. That's how everyone gets great, because they keep at it, they push at it, and they make things happen. So yeah, you could find that on podcast at thewickedhunt.com if if you want to hear those stories.
Oh, that is so awesome. And we'll drop all of these links in our show notes, guys, so you can make sure you connect with Stanley. At the very least, check out his incredible photography, because it makes me want to pick up my camera and go traveling. And I'm sure it will for you guys too. Stanley, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the podcast. We can't wait to hopefully have you on again.
I appreciate that, Sam. Had a lot of fun, and thank you for having me. And yeah, absolutely. If you want me to be back for a different topic, I'd love to share these messages, and yeah, hopefully can inspire one or two person out there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, guys, for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
So that's a wrap. If you loved today's episode, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and let us know why you loved it.
And if you know someone who needs to hear this, then send it their way and share it to your stories, tagging us at Time Money Mastery.
Feel like you're wanting just a little more? Jump on over to our Facebook community. You can find the link in the show notes.
That's all from us today, fam. We'll see you soon.